welcome to the new episode of the Check with Joseki Tech. I'll be your host today, Jasmine Salas. And today I'm here with Jared Chase, the VP of Marketing and Customer Strategy here at Joseki Tech. So we're going to be talking about a couple of things, lifecycle marketing, and just getting an explanation of what is it, what our problems are, and how we can tackle them. So, hey Jared, how's it going?
Doing great, Jasmine. Happy to be here to talk lifecycle marketing today with you.
Awesome, thanks. So we'll just jump right in. So you have a lot of experience working in lifecycle marketing, loyalty marketing, etc. And so I would like to pick your brain a little bit as to what lifecycle marketing is in your terms and in your words.
Yeah, sure. It's a big question, quite honestly, right? Lifecycle marketing can mean a lot, and it can kind of extend into other parts of customer strategies. But in general, lifecycle marketing is meeting the customer with where they're at in their journey with your company. Lifecycle marketing can begin at a prospecting stage. It should continue through engagement stages and continue through engagement stages, including purchasing stages, all the way through customers falling out of your funnel, right? There should be win back strategies and lap strategies to assess, determine how much effort should be spent to get those customers back into your customer lifecycle. And I should say a more engaging stage of the customer lifecycle. So, but in summary, it's really about a company having appropriate stages of their customer journey clearly laid out, understanding what the goals are of each of those stages of the journey, and then executing programs, tactics, and strategies to meet the customer within those stages.
Awesome. So that sounds like a really good explanation. There's usually, from my experience, there's usually about 5 or 6 steps within the customer life cycle. Can you go into a little bit about what those steps are? Like what points in the funnel are you in?
Yeah, sure. So, typically it starts with an acquisition stage where you may be prospecting for customers. And, a lot of the strategies around acquisition are, going after the folks in your target market, a lot of brand education, depending upon the product and service that an organization is selling, and also a bit of understanding who they are, right? Because customers are different. And an acquisition strategy needs to be based on where the customer is in their journey, right? And that could be as simple as a customer's coming from different industries, right? You may need a different, acquisition strategy for industry A versus industry B. And it also, is based on many other factors. But trying to learn as much as you can about that customer during the acquisition phase is really going to help fuel a lot of your marketing content, promo offer strategy that may follow as a result of that education and information gathering up front, right? And so lifecycle is really about building a solid strategy and a relationship with your customer. So after, an acquisition stage, you may get into an engagement stage, right? Where this is, hey, we've acquired a customer into our marketing lifecycle. Perhaps they've raised their hand and said, sure, you can send me some information. I'm interested to learn more. Perhaps if it's a retail play, they've been in a store and they've enrolled in, a loyalty program, or maybe it's an email or an SMS, or, they downloaded your app and they have opted in to receive some push messages, right? And so once we get a customer that is in the mix of a company, then it's, comes to the next stage of engagement. How should I engage this customer? And different companies have different titles for these life cycle stages, which is actually something that I really encourage companies to do, is to obviously make their life cycle strategy their own. And so you'll often see different, references to personas and life cycle stages that really kind of meet the business language, and whatever semantics they may use. And after you get through an engagement stage, right, you get into a kind of pre-purchase, purchase, post-purchase journey. And, I like to think of this as the active engagement stage of a customer, right? They've gone through acquisition, they've gone through some engagement, and now they're actually spending money with you, right? They're consuming your products or your services. And I like to think of this as really a journey within the life cycle, and where we want to, depending upon your company's, purchase frequency, your sales cycle, but we really want to keep customers active within that purchasing strategy, right? And so often you'll see a lot of content and outreach communications, focused on purchase criteria, right? How did you like your purchase? Is there a follow-up? Some other products you might like, right? Which should hopefully lead into some additional content, some additional fishing for that customer, cross sells, and trying to get that customer to expand their purchasing strength with you. Because a lot of times that's an opportunity. Sometimes it's not, but a lot of times that's a great opportunity. How do I gain more share of wallet and or get a customer purchasing in another aisle of our store or another category on our website? To close out the life cycle kind of stages, right? Then you'll run into, after that, that active engagement journey, customers will often fall into a lapsing bucket where, they've fallen outside of their purchase frequency. Maybe they've had so many days or months or years between purchases that have put them, outside the norm or outside the goal, which is where lapse strategies come in. And we're trying to get the customer back into that active engagement purchasing cycle. And then many companies will delineate between lapsed customers and sort of win back customers. So the last stage could be a win back category where there's a recognition, right, that, hey, we used to have this customer, we've sort of lost them, they've fallen out, and now we actually have to win them back, right? As many folks know and understand with their own data, getting a brand new customer in the door is often more expensive than reactivating an existing customer. So that win back category is really, really critical. And also provides a little bit of self-reflection, right? Around, hey, how come we lost this customer? Where did we go wrong? Where did we miss? What can we learn from this group of customers to, A, get them back into the purchasing cycle, but also B, what changes do we need to make to our existing lifecycle strategies to try and prevent that customer churn, and how can we improve? So in my words, that's what lifecycle marketing is, and maybe just a quick, few bullets on each of the stages along.
Great. So then, now that we have kind of an idea of what it is that we're talking about, can we talk about kind of the meat of the issue? Everybody that works in marketing understands a little bit about what life cycle is, but what are the challenges that approach life cycle marketing teams today?
Yeah, I think there are numerous challenges, and this is specific to each company. But what we're seeing in general is that oftentimes organizations kind of start and stop with their life cycle marketing, in my opinion, a little too high up, where, we may introduce a great life cycle strategy, for the base customer, or even for like the core segments of customers, which is great, right? Like step one is, what's our life cycle? What's our life cycle strategy? Step two is, how do we develop this life cycle strategy for the various segments of customers that we have? And then, another step beyond that is, how do we really optimize relevancy within our communications and personalize this experience for the customer? How does it become a one-to-one communication? And so oftentimes what I see is that customers kind of do one and two pretty darn well, right? Customers have a vision for life cycle. Oftentimes, more times than not, they have a segmentation strategy, a core kind of company-based segmentation strategy, and they may create different lifecycle tactics to address those two segments. Many do, many don't. That second piece is, kind of hit or miss. But then the third piece around personalization, and optimizing that message for each individual customer, definitely remains an opportunity for improvement. I would sort of say across the board. And that's really where, a lot of hard work and understanding. We have a scorecard and assessment process that helps customers with that. But also it's a technology challenge, right? Over the last 5 years, specifically, we've seen an explosion of AI technologies. It feels like every week or every month there's something new to learn in AI, and the market's moving really, really fast. And, one of the old kind of sayings, if you will, specifically in email marketing, which I always sort of loved and hated at the same time is set it and forget it, right? Like, hey, create your automation programs, get them out there into the world. You can set them up once and then you can quote unquote forget them, right? And many email marketers don't subscribe to that, right? We shouldn't be forgetting any of our programs. But the reality of, our world is that sometimes you check a box and you move on and you feel really happy about the box you checked. You have really good strategy in place. But oftentimes, programs aren't maintained and designed with the latest technology in mind. And so one of the gaps that we see and we try to solve is really kind of bridging the gap between strategy and execution. And that really is both arming our strategists, right, and our marketers with all the capabilities and technologies at their disposal, and also trying to get a little bit further up funnel from a planning perspective where campaigns are planned, strategies are executed with the existing MarTech stack in mind, right? What gaps may be between strategy and real world execution? We see a lot of gaps there where great strategies develop, but executing it's hard, or vice versa. And that's one of our specialties and what we look to address with our clients.
Awesome. And just like I wanted to add a little bit to the set it and forget it idea. So I have worked as an email marketer myself for a few years now. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think the idea of set it and forget it is a valuable one for certain campaigns that you run.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, like an introductory campaign when we're just saying like thank you for submitting your information, blah 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 blah. Unless you're doing a rebrand or something like that, that email never really needs to get updated, you know? But a re-engagement campaign when we're saying, hey, we either have new things in stores or um, make sure I used to work in education a little bit, so a lot of our re-engagement campaigns would be like take a look at what some of the things that our graduates have done, and if you would like to come into the funnel to be our next set of graduates, so it's things like that, and people's motivations change with time. Your customers and the personas that you are setting up can and will change over time because their motivations for any given. So right now, for example, people are scared about the economy, so using that in a re-engagement campaign of saying like enter an industry where there are guaranteed to be jobs for a long time and like for forever. So just with the example of I used to work in education, and specifically I used to work in
Yeah.
the medical education industry. And so they would put out something like, hey, um, if you're worried about the economy, get this degree in something like nursing or doctor's assistants, and make
Mm-hmm.
sure that you are recession proof, that you and your education are recession proof, and that in the future you never need to worry about things like that because you will have a degree that will take you anywhere you want to go, and then the experience is what matters after that. So once again, people change, time changes, the environments change. And so a re-engagement campaign is something that you do have to continue going and updating regularly. But set it and forget it can very much be just know like those automatic transactional emails. Like set it
Yeah.
and forget it would be great for that. Anything in the later stages of lifecycle marketing, you can't set and forget. You have to keep
Yeah.
on coming up with new strategies.
Yeah, Jasmine, I think that's a great point. I think what you're touching on is like, both parts of what I love about set and forget it and what I sort of,
Hmm.
don't love about it. And that the reality is, yeah, you got to set up campaigns and you got to get them out there and you have to give them a chance to
Yeah,
breathe, right? And then, but oftentimes, like the reality sometimes is that like programs will get set up and they will go for months and months and potentially years, and they're not being managed, right? And they're not being refreshed with specifically those things that you mentioned, right? Like, hey, you know, the economy's changed, right? Like this is a recession proof job becomes a really critical content strategy, that may not have worked two years ago, if you will, right? Or
exactly. Exactly.
yeah, so it's just really important to be measuring, monitoring, and optimizing your programs, on an ongoing basis, and just underscores the importance of you can forget it but like you
You
don't ignore
can't.
it.
You
Yeah.
shouldn't.
You could let it go for a month, right?
Yeah,
Like for like
yeah.
a trigger campaign, but you
Even
really need
like
to be reporting.
even like a year could work depending on what the message that you're putting out there is and when it is triggered, exactly like you said, a trigger campaign. So
Yeah.
it could work. Uh, you should never forget it though. Should never forget
Agreed.
about what it is that you're sending out there.
Yeah, I
Uh,
fully agree.
and so like by extension, these problems need solutions. So can you give us some ideas on like what you think companies should do to try to mitigate some of these issues?
Yeah. So, I think off the cuff, one of the strategies that I find really useful is to, map out your company's life cycle strategy, right? Make sure that everybody in the room is really clear on what the objective and goal of each of those stages are, right? What are we looking to achieve? Understand what core at this stage segmentation opportunities you have, right, across those various life cycle stages. And then go through a mapping exercise, right? Take all your outbound marketing, take all your emails, all your SMS messages, all your push messages, and map each of those messages or campaigns or journeys. Journey gets a little bit more difficult here because it can extend across life cycle stages, but map each of your campaigns to those various life cycle stages. And then start, categorizing your campaigns against the segments and get an assessment of where you're really strong, right? What parts of the life cycle do you feel really good about? Where are you having positive momentum? Where are your KPIs exceeding? And then where are you not so strong, right? Do you not have a strong enough lapsed campaign strategy, right? Where are you missing your biggest goals? And where are you missing opportunity for segmentation and more relevant communication? And what I find through that exercise is that usually pretty quickly, a few things jump off the page. We're really weak in onboarding. Yeah, we have a couple of onboarding messages. We may have a journey or two, but are we asking enough information of our client, of our prospects and our customers, right? Do we know enough about them? Do we know enough about their interests to be able to market to them effectively once they get to a purchase stage? Right. And so going through this exercise and mapping out all your programs against the life cycle stages is a great first step to really evaluate where you are and identify opportunities. And we see time and time again that there are always opportunities to be addressed with this type of approach. It's nice to put it all on one paper, right? And one page. And, with campaigns living in different systems, campaigns living in different tech stacks potentially, and trying to make sense of some of that like technical fragmentation, I might say, can be a bit of a challenge. But at least knowing what you're doing and mapping it to campaign lifecycle stages is critically important, and many good conversations, I assure our listeners, will result from that exercise.
Awesome. And then now that you're here at Joseki Tech, can you speak to how Joseki Tech and your knowledge can fit into all of those solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think most of our conversation today has been really focused on lifecycle marketing. We do offer and branch out into different, angles of marketing, which we really think is go-to customer marketing, which includes lifecycle loyalty and CRM strategies. Joseki Tech has a long history rooted in technical excellence, right? And does a great job of implementing, integrating, aligning MarTech stacks, and also is expert at marketing operations execution, right? Joseki Tech's been doing that a long time. What made me really excited about joining Joseki Tech is really bringing my marketing lens and expertise to the table, which allows us to help bridge the gap between marketing strategy and operational execution, right? So I really think of this as we've proven the technical chops. Now we have more marketing and strategy chops to really help customers bring their strategies to life. And it's really around activating existing strategies, right? We're not necessarily here to, you know, redo a go-to-market strategy for a company and be their brand expert, right? That's not our sweet spot, right? We're further down the marketing funnel when it comes to preparation of campaign strategy, understanding, do we have the appropriate campaigns and customer touch points to go to our customers with? And then operationalizing that, right, with real world execution. This is what we want to do. This is how we get there. And this is how we do it, right? So I'm really excited to really kind of marry customer strategy and marketing strategy with the great technical roots that Joseki Tech has to bring some additional full service capabilities to the table.
Great. So I think that wraps up our conversation a bit. Are there any closing statements that you would like to give?
I think a couple of the gaps in addition to what we've already discussed that we're looking to address is really data fragmentation, getting customers to get more out of their MarTech stack, right? I mentioned earlier that the marketing tech world is advancing so quickly, both in terms of new technologies and new AI abilities, but also existing products. And there's a real challenge in getting the most out of your current MarTech stack today. Oftentimes there's technical gaps to be able to, be able to execute and bring those things to life. Oftentimes there's just a capability and education misalignment. But with the proliferation of technology, what we're finding is that oftentimes customers aren't utilizing the full capability of what they already have. And our goal is to help our customers maximize their current investment. So those are a couple of additional things that are on my mind as I get up to speed here at Joseki and the problems and challenges that we're looking to help our customers address. But nothing else to add at this point, Jasmine. Thanks so much for your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I think that's it.
Alrighty.
Okay.
Take
Have a
care.
good day.